At this time, presentation by Len Morganis, the AFO of the city, and also...
I'll introduce you.
Okay, yeah, he's going to speak also, yes. Thank you.
You may, yes. So, good evening, council. This is, my name is Leonard Morganis. I'm the Administration and Finance Officer for the City of Central Falls. With me is John Simmons from RIPAC. You may remember him from the budget process. He's a valued member of the state municipal finance world, and we use him as a mentor and guidance. And you'll see in one of these slides, we actually have engaged his organization to help with the city finance group and our systems and efficiency and performance. So tonight what I wanted to do is give an update of basically where we are today from a mid-year point of view, where the group is, some of the challenges we've had mid-year, up to mid-year, some updates about the bankruptcy, audit, budget process, and then at the end, the actual financial results. I wrote a two-page narrative that I will hand out when we get that far for the record. So first thing I wanted to make public, if it wasn't known, we have officially cleared bankruptcy with the federal court. This is fantastic news, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's publicly celebrated by the city at some future date. The date is February 6th. We were notified about a week later from the judge. Basically what it says, it's a lot of legal language, but basically what it says is we made a motion to the court after the September status meeting that we felt we were complete with all our obligations. As AFO, I certified that I believed in the best of my ability that I completed all the judge's orders that I was under with the confirmation order. So some of the bankruptcy plan entailed direct action by myself in executing my role. So I showed proof of that. The city showed proof of other compliance with all the other rules. So we made a motion sometime after the September status meeting. I think it was sometime in late October or the beginning of November to the court. And like I said, in the beginning of February, Judge Bailey, who's been the judge from day one, all the way back to the initial filing with the federal court. So basically what this means is that the federal court no longer has jurisdiction over the city or any of its elected officials or the administration and finance officer. That does not mean, however, there is some confusion with timing, so I'll just clarify. The Fiscal Stability Act is an act written by the state to comply with the bankruptcy plan. That state law states that the oversight by my position ends 5 years to the day of the receiver leaving. That was April 15th, 2013. So the Fiscal Stability Act ends at midnight, April 15th of this year. After that, all responsibilities, all power given to the office no longer are there. So essentially, it reverts 100% to the charter. The Fiscal Stability Act gave override discretion by my office to the charter. At the end of the Fiscal Stability Act, it's 100% charter execution. So again, this is fantastic news, and everyone should be, everyone before you and after, and I mean now, and everyone here should be very proud of the fact that 5 long years have passed, and this has been acknowledged by the court. Saying that, the one bad thing that came with that was the price tag. So I wanted to give an update of where we were, where we are. So Claim 19 was basically the court, bankruptcy court just established claims for each party. Claim 19 just happened to be the number for the state. So basically, Claim 19 states under the Fiscal Stability Act, the city owes costs back to the state for the cost of the bankruptcy. The original number, at the end of FY17, you see the number 3.3 million. The balance as of today is 1.5 million.
Excuse me, do you have this in documents I could review? I can't see that well. Do you have a paper copy?
I would not, I could print one. Not right, I don't have one right now available to the council. I'm sorry.
It makes it very difficult to follow if I don't have something in front of me because of my eyesight. I thought you would be providing documentation as I requested weeks ago, but I'll get into that later. Thank you anyway.
So the city has continued with myself, my bankruptcy attorney, and the city solicitor's office. We're still working with the state to reduce or eliminate this amount. This is literally a weekly event, talking, negotiations, trying to get them to give aid and comfort to the city residents. We are contemplating submitting legislation this open period to the Assembly to reduce or eliminate. One thing I should have added there is, part of that is, if they won't reduce and eliminate, we want to extend the term. The original plan, the original law was written that we had to pay back by 2021. So we're looking to, if they're not going to reduce or eliminate, we want to extend to 2025, again, to eliminate the annual paying back, from the city.
Does that entail an accrual of interest?
There is no interest, it's just direct charges from lawyers, bond lawyers, and the receiver, and the folks that were running the city before the receiver was picked, and while the receiver was here. So, no interest, no penalties.
Can we get a breakdown of all the financial costs to the city, please, at some point?
What's provided to us, Councilman, is a one-page summary broken down by vendor, by year. So it adds up to the 3. I'm just letting you know what you're going to see is a one-page summary. We don't have, they're not our invoices, we don't have the invoices. What we have is we get a summary once a year from the state, broken out, like I said, by vendor.
Does the state have the summary?
I have the summary, I'll give it to the
Does
council.
does the state have,
We've asked continuously, every week, every month, we ask for copies of the invoices. They will not give us the invoices unless they're redacted. We are fighting that claim. They make the claim that we're not the client, they're the client. And I said, why are we paying if we're not the client? So I don't want to get into that right now, but the reality is they only create a one-page summary. We do not have detail. That's truthfully, that's part of our backup argument to the legislators, that if you're not going to give us detail of what you're saying we owe, we're not going to pay it. We're done paying. This is it. This is the end. So we're sort of playing hardball right now. We got to our demarcation line, as I call it, and we're not going further than this until they either give us the detail of what the invoices make up. Because as many may not know, that was a crazy time. I wasn't here, but I've read the documents. There was a lot of projects that the state had those folks doing, and some of them we feel did not directly relate to the bankruptcy, but they still put it in Claim 19. So when we feel we have a really good case for this to get certainly reduced, but obviously we're pushing for elimination. So as you saw at the agenda, I have 5 major buckets that I'm going to talk about tonight, review of the past 6 months, the corrective action plan of some of the challenges that I saw, I felt, you saw and felt some of them, but I saw more. Quick audit update. the upcoming budget season, and then the financial that you have, and then I'll hand out my narrative, and we can have a little Q&A after that. So basically, where we are today. So some of the issues we've had in terms of timely financials, so as you know, as a council, finance, we're submitting monthly financials, and typically, depending on when the council needed it, usually it's a month behind, tops 2, and I know that they've been 2 or 3 months behind, since October. That was not because of whether we had or did not hire a finance director. That was because 2 key personnel out of 4 were on FMLA at different times. And that the second one was the one that really caused us to have an impact in terms of giving timely financials. What we thought we had was a good backup process to that, and a secondary person. What we learned was a lot of that was institutional and in people's heads, and what I call a single point of failure. So if you think about something having 5 links, if one link breaks, everything dies. So that link is a single point of failure. There's only one person involved in that. So one of the things that we learned is that we have 2 spots that are single point of failures, and one of them is it starts at payroll, but it's not just the payroll process. We were able to obviously pay people. The issue was getting the payroll information moved into the financial system. Unfortunately, our system is somewhat antiquated. Even though the state put that in 2013, they did not pick a system that was matched to our process. They picked a system just because the school was using it and they were trying to merge the 2 entities together. So the system really isn't the best one for our process. So without payroll, payroll is about 50% of our expenses. Without payroll going into the financials timely, obviously handing you financials without 50% of the numbers wasn't a prudent thing to do. So I made the decision, instead of giving you incorrect information that didn't have half the information, we held the financials until we were able to catch up. So, in November in December was a little better, and then now we were able to get to December. Based on our going forward process, we certainly feel that we've eliminated some of this stuff already, some of our challenges, and I'm going to talk about the road forward, a corrective action plan, so that information not only can be timely, but as you see, I have a goal to have live, on-demand financials on the website, so that anybody, not just council members, anybody in the public could go, look at various departments, the change from yesterday to today. That is the goal. We're looking to, I met for 3 hours today with one company, plus RIPEC is helping, and you'll see what we're doing there. So basically what we had to do is bring some temps in quickly to deal with payroll. Literally, we found out one day, and she was out 2 days later. So it was literally an emergency situation.
Mr. Chairman,
Why don't you let him finish the presentation and jot down?
Or at least the slide.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on. So again, anyway, so short term, what I did was bring in some temps to backfill the FMLA people. We adjusted some folks' schedule and tasks so that they could better align to, because basically we had to reprioritize what was important and what wasn't, and make sure that we could keep the engine running until we found a solution or people would come back to help us deal with what we were dealing with. That is, I don't mean to be tongue-in-cheek on number 4, but this is a true statement. Some of the most challenging months of my 5 years has happened in the past 6 months, because I knew the responsibility of timely financials, bringing timely financials to the public and to the council is a major part of this job, so it was really frustrating to me that that expectation couldn't be met. So, I consider and apologize, but the better thing to do is understand what happened, come up with a corrective action plan, and make sure it doesn't happen again. So that, you have my word. So that's basically what caused the delays. For instance, I'll give you an example, it's not on here. We do so usually there's 2 payrolls a month. So just the process of payroll could take days, but then just to get all that information into the financials takes an additional 4 days right now, manual process. So if payroll takes 4 days, it takes another 3 or 4 days to get that into the financials. And some of that knowledge was actually missed when the person was out of how to do that, and that's what caused, some of our issues with timely financials. So corrective action plan. So there's a lot of information here, but I'm going to try to summarize it in a very simple 5 or 6 sentences. So one of the things when you have these problems, you have to take a look at what's the process that's happening now, and where's the breakdown, what's happening. So I noticed these single point of failures. So one of the things that we had to do was stop this institutional knowledge in one person. So we really had to get a visual of what these steps are, what this process is. So if it's processing payroll, as I'm talking, I'm going to show you, put one example up there, and then I'll go back to the other slide. So one process of paying one invoice might have 18, this is just an example, by the way, this is now, I just wanted to show what a process map is. It's a visualization of steps, whether it's paying an invoice or paying a person, ordering, cups, so I could sell coffee, and what are the 20, 30 steps, and how could so when I see them visually, I could see, are there duplicates? Does ownership have, so are there people, time to each task so nothing gets dropped, nothing gets missed? And more importantly, can I eliminate and can I automate? And those efficiencies really come in when you do what we call a process map, which is the lingo. So you do a process map and you basically get folks that sit with people and you watch them and you document everything they do, literally sometimes with a stopwatch, to say how long did it take you to enter a new car registration into the database, so that we know if we have 1,000 registrations to do, we know exactly how long it's going to take at some point in the future. So that literally was today's task by somebody, was document how long it took to enter car registrations into the system. Because as you know, with the budget, it's very important we have the correct ownership to the correct registrations in the database. So one of the things that I initiated was a discussion with Mr. Simmons' company, RIPEC, because they are like the state go-to when it comes to process mapping and gaining efficiencies in process. So with folks from Amica and RIPEC, they've been in within the past week or so, and starting that process of sitting with personnel, interviewing them, going through tasks, documenting tasks. So the end result will be this process map for all the processes each person does. So this helps with cross-training, this helps with new hires. So this shortens new hire cycles in terms of catching up on how do you do these things. This helps if we ever have to step in again because of medical reasons or any other reason, or termination or whatever, we have the ability to step in and do these tasks down cold. This also includes a hardware and software review, because again, automation can't happen unless you have the proper systems in place. Clean up on aisle 5. So there'll be a hardware and software review. Again, the issue I take with the state when they came in was they did not take a look at our process and get the best software for that process. So you really have two choices when you backtrack. So you have two choices in this situation that they had in 2013, 2012 timeframe is You either change the process that you have, which means you need to know it and document it, so you can change it to the system you're putting in. Or you change the system to match the process you have. Those are your two alternatives. There usually isn't three, unless John wants to correct me, but you really have to change the process or change the system you're using. They did neither. So they didn't look at our process, they didn't document it, they bought Infinite Vision because the school has it, and that's the simple truth. And we've been struggling with it since, and, you know, in order to move this city into the future, it's important to me, it's important to the mayor, you know, we have time limits. He has term limits, I have time limits, and whether it's April, whether it's 2020, those things, either way, the reality is that we want to leave this in a much better, much protected state than it's in now. And the only way to do that is to understand how we do these things in finance, how do we do them better, and how do we do them more efficiently. That is paramount to success and also fixing and being able to defend against stuff that's happening, you know, challenges that pop up when, you know, you don't expect them. Certainly didn't expect, you know, 2 FMLAs within a month of each other of a full person group. So, the recommendation from VIPEC should come sometime between end of March and April, of whether it's process changes, process removals, automation. Oh, by the way, you know, you were right, Infinite Vision is not the, you know, this tool is better, or you could go out and pay a monthly fee to just, you know, there's software modules where you don't have to spend 30, 40 grand buying. You could sort of just, you pay by the month, sort of like you're leasing a car, and it's, you know, a few $1,000s, and it's a much cheaper alternative. So it's 2018, there are lots of alternatives to changing the system we have. Some could be dramatic, where it's a full hardware, software change and expensive, and some could be minor, where it's software modules and training and eliminating process once we have a process map and stuff. So this is, you know, I sound passionate about it because I have an IT background. I come from a tech company. This is stuff that, you know, we lived. We would acquire companies during the year, and this is what we'd have to do. We'd have to merge them into our infrastructure, you know, and we'd get best of breed. You know, what are they doing that's really good? What could we do better? What could we learn from them? And this is basically what this corrective action plan will give us. So Tripex's doing, I just want to give the chance to John. If I did a good job, he's going to stay quiet. Is that a good explanation, or?
Yeah.
You good? You want to add anything? You want to?
I think what you've seen is what we're proposing to do for the city. We have a skill set behind it with Amica and the company we're hiring to do the IT. We're doing inventory of everything that's on the current servers and systems, engaging them, sourcing them. We'll match those up to the processes, and we'll come back to the city with some recommendations about the process changes or systematic changes. We believe when one looks at your history of the system changes that you did, you've probably got some of the newest systems in the state. They were done during the bankruptcy, and the receiver went out and bought the system, as one has indicated. Whether that's the correct system or it's used correctly, we use ADP, for instance, and whether you're using the module for ADP completely, we'll go through that process with you to say, does it make sense to change it or not? And we'll be back to, you know, to the mayor in that March, April time period. But I just wanted to come tonight if there was any questions on our work. We can have either further conversation tonight, or we can do it later on. We just wanted to make sure that we were being asked by them to do something, which we've done before for other places, cities, the rest of the comfortable in the work, and with the staff that's there. And again, the idea is not necessarily, it's not about the personnel that's there, it's about the systems and the process. And we're much more interested in that. We think that you've got some good workers, but it's making their job easier and getting them to participate. We've had a meeting with them to ask for their participation in this process.
Thank you. So, this is it.
Uh-huh. Can you hear me anyway? Anyways, yeah. First of all, I want to congratulate Lane Morgani for the great job have been doing the last 5 years in the city, seeing the bankruptcy is already behind us. It's a great news, and I appreciate that. I know that you are working diligently and alongside with John to solve the issue that you just mentioned, which is an issue, but as you are working on it to fix the problem, what is the time frame that you have to correct the problem and prevent that to happen again?
So there's two avenues we're looking at right now. So one is aligning with our audit company, Markham. They have an arm and extension of their business unit that not only does something similar to what RIPEC does, but they actually have built and implemented GL infrastructure in other communities and stuff. If we go down that road, you're only talking, that could be, the goal is to implement something by July 1st, or else you don't want to have two systems in the same fiscal year. So if we can implement something by July 1st, we'll make it a long-term plan, and from the system point of view and automation. But in order to stop the other stuff, that's where the process map comes in, and that's where we're able to visualize and we're able to train from that. Those things are going to happen within weeks. So by the time RIPEC is done, sometime in April, those things will be resolved and no longer be an issue. Once we're able to execute on understanding those processes and get people cross-trained, because now someone else could sit and do that job. So I could say, okay, tomorrow you go do his job and you go do his job, and each one will double check your work and make sure that that's one way to test that the process is working and stuff. So we want to make sure that once we have an executable process map and detail of every step, we're going to execute like that, where we're just going to have tasks done by other people so they know how to do that stuff. So if this happens again, everyone is cross-trained in a much better way than we thought they were. So that will resolve this issue now. But the goal again is to have a much easier transaction map, not take 4 days to do the payroll entry and the financials, and also the ultimate goal is transparent financials on the web, on demand for people. That way they can come to a meeting and see a printout. They could go to our website every day and see this and print it every day. So that's our goal. It could happen as fast as June or July. It really depends on the resolution of the next couple of weeks. We're executing that and then seeing what does this flow look like. Is it possible that Markham's tool can help us with that? The reason why I sort of went down Markham's road is because they've been doing our audit since before I was here during the bankruptcy, 2010. They are probably the most intimate people walking with our financial system and our transaction history and the shortcomings of our process. I mean, they know everything. They know where everybody's there. The old saying, they know everything about our internal system, financial system. So by using Markham's tool, they know how to direct those modules and those tasks to fix what they're seeing, what they're seeing, whether it's in an audit or whether it's just in what they're seeing in what happened in the first half of the year, you know what I mean? So, and you'll see some of the things when I go over the audit, some of the issues that, because of the financials being delayed, that's what caused some of that delay, although Markham did cause some delay too, and I'll walk into that. But I think the key to going down that road again is Markham's familiarity with how we do things and what we do well and what we don't do well, and attack the things we don't do well. And I think we do that, that'll happen really fast. That'll happen in the next 3 months.
Let's
Yes.
so July. Let's say
yes.
July 4 will be
July
the target
1st, yeah.
for the automation things, and after everything
There's-
is in the system, we won't have this kind of issue anymore.
We're not gonna have the issue if we execute the process map correctly. We won't have the issue of late financials. We will not. So, that is, That is of utmost importance to me. Once we were able to catch up, and we're not totally caught up, obviously, because it's February, we're talking about December, but I think we also sort of stopped that phase for a second so we could focus on the audit, because a mid-year report is a good time to do it. We should do this every, I'll do this every year. In fact, I want to do this every quarter, once you see my narrative, but, I don't want to bite off more than I could chew. So I want to see how that fifth button goes, and then we'll go from there. But, so that's basically the corrective action plan of the issues we ran into in the beginning of the year. This is a proven method. Companies do this every day, big companies, small companies. Documenting process mapping, seeing where there's duplication, seeing where you could delete, seeing where you could automate. It's just, it sounds common sense, but, no one's done it to date. So I'm doing it now because I refuse to be in this position again.
Now it's the time I can ask some questions.
You gotta hold the PowerPoint down. Can I read the summary?
Right.
What's that?
Can I read the summary?
Oh, yeah, sure. All right, I could do that for you. I will,
Got it.
only because I didn't make enough copies.
Good evening, Mr. McGinnis and Mr.
Sergeant.
Simmons, John. Your comments raised many questions, Lenny. I would presume that in the way that you are speaking, that you plan on staying and taking over the finance director's job, talking about the future years, future reports. Since we have not had a finance director since last fiscal year, since last year about this time, we've been running without a finance director. So are you going to be the new finance director?
Well, I want to correct you, Councilman. We've had an acting finance director under my power. The AFO could appoint people under my statute, and the mayor approves, which he did. Irina Gorman's been the acting finance director since the previous finance director left last April. So I just want a slight correction. We've had a finance director. Just because the word acting is there doesn't mean she's not the finance director. Until the statute ends, she's the finance director. I'm the AFO.
So until the statute ends, so I would assume that after the statute ends, you'll be the new finance director.
The best way I'll say it is when the statute ends, you'll either get the mayor submitting that she's going to be the acting, because now it goes back to the charter and she would have to submit something to the council, or it would be myself.
Okay.
So at some point, I'm not trying to be coy, the mayor and I have not closed that issue 100%.
That's fine.
It's still up for discussion.
That's fine. John, I can call you John because I've known you for over 30 years now, close to 40.
When I was
I'm sorry.
13.
Yeah, yes.
I'm sorry.
Last year, you were present here last year, John, during our budget process. And a lot of the things that I'm discussing over the last year, I've been reiterating throughout this last year financially. Our financial records, our reports, detailed information, requests, and I think Irina's doing a tremendous job, but unfortunately, I've been to her office in the last 2 weeks requesting information and she's not able to provide. I've left messages for documentation and it's not provided. I've called the council president up for information, further documentation than what we received is the December 31st, and I requested more detailed information. And I did request more from Mr. Morgianis and has not been provided. My concern, John, We are not reinventing the wheel. We've had financial systems in here. When I was mayor, we installed financial systems. They've been updated continuously. I fail to understand how the state's implementation of this financial system created this much turmoil and lack of documentation and background. Now, we've been paying for this. We've been having good personnel down there who should know how to utilize the system, but it has not been working. Now, your IPEC study that you're being discussed, what type of a system are you looking at rehauling, upgrading the entire financial network? Are you upgrading just our financial? Are you upgrading our tax system, our tax records? Are you upgrading? There has to be a problem, and I got a concern mentioning the auditor, because continuously over the last few years, the deadline, as you know, is December 31st for submission to the Council of the Audit. That has never come. It has always been delayed. At the last presentation of the audit, we weren't even allowed to ask questions on it. This is not transparency. What type of a system are you proposing that would be open, transparent for not just the council, but the residents here who ask questions? I know that you were brought in. I'm not sure if you are coming in as a paid consultant. Were you last year? Are you again this year? What other aspects are you planning on doing? Maybe you can give us a
We're
little
coming in
insight.
as a paid consultant, and Len can talk about the agreement that we have with them to do this work. And I won't tell you what we're going to recommend until we do the work first. First is we're going to map it.
Use the microphone for the other people.
We don't have a set of recommendations until we do the work. We like to start there first. It gives us sometimes a better outcome than to pick the outcome first. So we're going to go through this process. We agree, based upon conversations with Len and the mayor and others, and what hearing the conversation about the efficiency and effectiveness of your current system with the current numbers of folks that you have, of getting the information out in a timely, transparent way. We also look at, if people are not here, looking back to the documentation, procedural layouts of what you do and how you do it. They don't seem to exist. So we don't know, for instance, in what are the multiple steps to do payroll. What are the multiple steps to incorporate the payroll into your general ledger? What are the steps on the tax side to incorporate it into the general ledger? How much of it is manual? How much of it is automated? How much can be automated? I would differ from Len a little bit on the way of outcome of the company picking the outcome, and I think we would agree with that is a potential resolution. But we would need to go through what the processes that you have here. For instance, we don't know, you have private detail work. We don't know what your process is to handle private details, and how do you incorporate that into your payroll system. Do you use the payroll system, for instance, it's an ADP system, as we understand it. Are you using all the modules in ADP? And is it then interchangeable with your general ledger? If it's not, can that be fixed? So we'll go through that processing first. And then we'll look at your IT system and what it's providing and how it's providing it. We'll then try to map the process to the system you have. And then we'll make the determination, the recommendation, okay, altering the system or altering the process. Most likely it'll be a combination of both. We're going to try to simplify the system, the process that you have, the steps that you do. We've seen some, and Amica is one of the best companies to do this. They've done the DMV and they've done a whole variety of other ones, this type of processing now. And they are able to reduce the steps and the duplications of steps, for instance. So we'll look at that first, we'll look at the systems, and then we'll come back and say, here are some alternatives for you to explore. We'd like to see it all done this fiscal year, because again, my experience is that you then have to map out a transition if you're going to do it. There's nothing saying that what you have today isn't going to work if you alter it. We don't know that today. You may be able to change what you have, and that could be simpler. If it's a change of system, having gone through a bunch of them, and I can't tell you how many times, and I've always felt that the first few times was always the bleeding edge of change. So you have to work it out. It may take a little bit longer. It may be reasonable to do it longer than shorter, because you want to be able to put it in staged fashion to make it work and work well. So I can't tell you the outcome yet. We'll go through the work. We'll be doing that over the next couple of months. Simultaneously, the IT as well as the processing. We'll then come back and have a session where we'll talk through with Mayor and Glenn here are the recommendations that we're going to look at.
Thank you, John. I want to go to Jonathan and or Franklin because they both have to leave around 7. Jonathan, have any questions of Len or Mr. Simmons?
I'd like to finish the presentation and then.
Okay.
Yeah, I only have a few more slides, so
Yeah,
we can
could you
get through it and then we
could
can
you
talk
get
about
to- Yeah, and.
other important. These are just examples. This one's a little more in-depth about process and what a mapping looks like. I just wanted to show you 2 different ones that some are really detailed and steps down as you go across and as you go down in terms of how you process this stuff. So an audit update. So I've highlighted the internal challenges of, so if the reporting was delayed to you, the reporting was delayed to the audit. So that's what pushed us into January. The audit company, believe it or not, had their own single point of failure. There's a partner named Deborah Mitchell. And the only reason I bring her up is because I'm going to say really good that Deborah has been the one to close the audit every year. She's the only one that really understands the bankruptcy and the intricacies and the challenging, the Fiscal Stability Act and what things that the officer is allowed to do that causes Central Falls audit to be more difficult than other city auditors and more challenging. And what they usually do is get everything organized for the end of December. Deb has come in every year in January and finished the audit. The problem this year is Deb is also running into FMLA issues with medical issues in the family, and she's not able to work every day, and it's caused Markham to be in a standstill some days because they literally have a single point of failure with us. Deb has always been the person to put the ribbon on the audit, and so that is why to date we do not have a draft. We're supposed to have a draft by Friday. We may even have it tomorrow. So usually there is, well, let me do the good. The good news is our pension and OPEB actuarials from our actuarial, Dan Sherman, they're complete. And usually the process is that I sit with the union reps because the pension and the OPEB is strictly with the police and fire actives. So annually what happens is that report is done, well, the pension is done annually, the OPEB is done every 2 years. And then those will be made transparent once the ribbon goes on that. Right now it's in a PDF format, and we, obviously in the next week or 2 that'll be put in a binder format and stuff, and you will get copies handed out probably at the next meeting, hopefully. And basically what the pension does, it walks through the pension as it relates to the future liability and all the retirees, the ones on PAYGO plus the actives. Our funded ratio increased by almost 3%, which is a huge jump annually. It doesn't sound it, but it is. And our assets hit a milestone of over $10 million with the pension company. That was a big accomplishment on that. So we should have a draft audit by the end of the week. Markham's goal is to have it bindered and official by March 15th. We're allowed to submit the draft to the Auditor General. Dennis Hoyle, him and I are close. We've remained close since the day I met him in April 2013. Dennis Hoyle is the Auditor General for the state of Rhode Island. He's been in the loop by myself and Markham since January 1st. And the state has no issues with the first delay and the second, I guess you could say. To be transparent, the initial thought was we needed January 31st and Deb will come in and do the ribbon like we always do, and everything was supposed to be all set. It was in January when Markham's issue with Deb happened, and then we had to push it out after that. To be transparent, Markham has been our auditor since 2010. They were under a different company. They merged with Braver. That's a long time to have an auditor be part of an organization. But I used my AFO powers to keep them on because I didn't want a different audit company, and Dennis Hoyle agreed, the Auditor General, with me. We didn't want to bring two audit companies in the middle of the bankruptcy process. Again, with the challenge of understanding the confirmation order, the plan, and the Fiscal Stability Act, the simplest solution was keep Markham until the end of the bankruptcy. So this will be their last audit. They may even have a year on the contract, but I've already terminated it, using my powers. So we will go out to bid the minute the ribbon goes on. We will schedule a meeting or put it on the agenda of an existing meeting, and they'll come and visit. And that's the audit update. The F-19 budget process, so basically, from my end, it kicked off already. Usually my first steps, yes, Mr. Councilman Lozay, sorry.
I've asked in the past, I'll request again if I am available, I would like to sit in on any reviews of the audit and any questions that I could present upon that review. I am interested in the audit report, and I agree with you that I don't think we should continue with the same audit in the future.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me. The FY budget process, as I said, for me has started already. What that means is I'm verifying headcount with all the directors, verifying open headcount, meaning, as you see the signs, we're sourcing for 2 policemen, 2 firemen, and the deputy director in planning, Mark, is no longer with us. Mark, I don't know how to say his last name, Aiello, there's someone up, yeah. So they're sourcing that position too. So right now we have 5 openings for the city.
What position is that? I didn't hear that.
Mark, the deputy, I think he was the deputy director for planning. I'm not sure that he was. Okay, thank you.
Diallo?
Mark, yeah, Mark.
Aiello.
Yeah, Alio, sorry.
Italian, Aiello, A-I-E-L-L-O.
Oh, Lord. So basically what the initial start is, since headcount is 50% of the budget, verifying headcount is one of the most important things to do. So that started already. So basically, templates went out, I walk through, I sit with anyone that I have any confusion over, stuff like that. So basically, this is the timeline from February to June. Excuse me, the directors will get asked to, submit either a list of spending. It might not be the whole budget, like say, for Parks and Rec, it might be just a list of events, because that's really the only line they have in their budget. So depending on the director, it might be an entailed 20 lines, but I know that the city clerk, especially the city property group, literally goes through every line in that, so that's a detailed thing. Like I said, Parks and Rec, it's usually 1 or 2 lines of what are the events you're planning and senior stuff, after school stuff. So that basically will start in the coming weeks. And then putting together a tax solution that meets whatever that number is. And then, as you know, we start circulating that, seeing what's possible and have discussions. May 15th, I should have put May 15th. The one solid date is May 15th. That is by charter, has to be submitted to the council by May 15th. The only other thing by charter is 5 days before the end of the year, approval, or you live under the current budget. So those are really only 2 dates in the charter. Excuse me. And as you know, I don't have a say, but the city will, once they're ready and submit the budget, after this budget submittal, whether it's the clerk or I'm assuming the chief of staff will coordinate how many meetings, and we'll start that fun process of however meetings you want to have. If 2 a week for a month, it's really up to you and the city how you figure that out, whether you sit with the directors around. So I just put it there as, I'm gonna assume the same process as last year. We submit the budget, and then we kick off, you guys having public workshops with each directors, going over their plan of what they wanna do, what they wanna spend, stuff like that. So that's all I have on the presentation part of it. After talking with a couple of council members, I did learn that there was a slightly different, or I should say, there's more we could do to help understanding the financial situation and stuff. So we've asked John, and we're going to coordinate through the city, the chief of staff, and we're going to kick off meetings with John and any council member that wants it. These will be private. These will not be public meetings. These will be private, one-on-one, two-on-one, whatever. Obviously not more than 3, but the idea is if there's any assistance needing in understanding or just the budget or the budget process, or how to read the budget, I know it's complicated. That's why, in my past, I've always had to submit the narrative that you see. Now, in a half year with the city, it's kind of thin. That's why, the budget is a year bucket. There is no monthly breakout. So the narrative is, admittedly, it's kind of light. It basically just tries to highlight some of the things that I see as you should think about, looking at. The good thing is, we're underspending slightly. There's been some benefits to that because of, we received the payment, the claim for the flood before we started paying invoices. So, the city property line has a credit instead of a positive number, stuff like that.
Turn the projector off.
I'll say.
So basically, what I'm hoping to do on a quarterly basis is submit a narrative like this, whether I show up or not, but just so that it could help the council get a simplified view of, at a high level, what's going on. What do I see in my experience of these financials and overall experience of what's jumping out, what I think is something that's notable to the elected officials that they should see and they should know. So it's pretty straightforward, but I think if you may or may not recall, I did this at the end of FY17 for the year. I submitted it to you guys with the Q4 attestation paperwork. I'm not saying that you have to pull it out of there. I'm just letting you know that the annual one it was 4 pages. It's much meatier, obviously. It gets into more detail about what each group is. There's more spending. There's more things to explain. But basically, we're on track on revenue, and we're spending less than what we should be in terms of the expected spend. We're 10% under that. There's nothing major in terms of overages. There's some trends that are slightly higher, and I noted them. And again, as I always say, attached to that, so I apologize to the 1 or 2 council members that brought it up to me, but I'll apologize publicly. I was under the assumption that the monthly financials that Irina was submitting included the capital detail. I was made aware it did not. I did not know that actually until I sat with a couple of you guys. When I review them, I get an email, I review them, sign off. I just assumed she wasn't sending it because there's nothing really from review. It's one of those things, it is what it is. It's just a list of spend for each group with a project name. So I apologize for that. I did submit it. I didn't get it until like literally 5 o'clock today. I don't have a narrative, but you can see the breakdown of the groups. my suggestion, as with the other expenses, because I do not have detailed answers for anything in that budget right now. So I have what I wrote. If you have questions, as I always say during the meetings and stuff, either schedule a meeting or send an email to the chief of staff and we will get the answer timely. So that's the end of my planned talking. So I will answer any questions that you may have that I could help. Document any questions that you may have. I can get back to you guys. I'm open to scheduling meetings. Like I said, we're gonna contact you probably the next day or two to work out private meetings so we could talk about anything and everything regarding what you heard today, what you heard in any private conversation this weekend or but may never have come up. So that's that.
Jonathan, you got your...
Thanks for your presentation, Lynn. And thank you for the capital improvement fund. I just had a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
One, hopefully you
Oh.
can answer, maybe not.
No, that's fine.
Under the monthly report, we're about 74 grand over on other professional services from the city clerk's office. My assumption is that that's to the consulting firm that we're working with now. I don't know. Is that,
I didn't-
alright, so is that one of the, we'll jot it down.
Is that in the
for
city
later
company?
question?
Is that in the?
It's in the general fund expenditure somewhere, yeah, for the summer. Our budget was 28 grand, we've spent 102 grand.
Oh, is that the 102 negative?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's the credit. So when we get a check, so the check for flood, the claim for the flood, the check, we deposited it right in that line and credited it. Because when we start paying the bills against that claim, it's gonna go right in that line,
All right.
offset that revenue. So essentially,
And that was the
instead of
back
counting, yeah,
situation?
yeah. So instead of counting it as revenue, we slammed it right into the expense line because we want to pay right against it.
Great.
So I apologize for it. So the negative in that actual line means it's a credit. There's another account I highlighted in my narrative. There's another account in that line, in that Sonia's, the clerk's group and, oh, and I didn't highlight it in my narrative. I didn't title it. I'm sorry. There's a 30 grand credit also in the city property bucket. And that's the same reason. It's just spread between telecommunications, I remember it. Because a lot of wiring had to be redone, IT wiring and stuff had to be redone in that area and in another area. So it got split to claim.
Great.
So the checks went there.
And this is probably more for the chief of staff. If we can get more information on the community outreach. I know last year on the budget, we increased that budget line item. And so for us to.
And it's still going.
Yeah, could be 29%.
And it's moving.
Budget, yeah.
Yeah, no, that we obviously we have an administration and a mayor that believe strongly in, you know, because of the lack of community center. You know, he obviously believes in strongly in doing what he can in terms of community outreach. Obviously, we're monitoring that and, you know, we could talk about, you know, if you want detail of some of the things that have been outreached from that bucket, we could do that too.
Cool. Last thing, sorry, I gotta run, again, I appreciate you guys' time. For the future capital improvement fund reports, can we get them by department? So right now, the fire,
Yeah.
I think, is separate.
Yeah, so
Which is great, but,
sorry.
yeah,
I didn't mean
yeah.
to cut you off. It used to be like that. I don't know why. Like I
Yeah,
said,
it's not even.
I got handed that at 5. I would have, so, but I wanted to clarify one thing. I am gonna talk one more thing about the budget. So when we start getting closer to the budget, I am gonna slightly change something, but it's really to help you guys and help everyone understand the budget and the budget part, you know, the budget itself. I think it's important to look at holistically, whether it's 18 million or 17.9 or 18.2, whatever it is, you know, what's people related, what's fixed cost in terms of the debt, what's fixed cost in terms of the pension with the retirees. I think if I summarize that in a little 5-6 grouping thing, you could see there's a lot of budget meetings and stuff for about 10% of the budget. So most of this stuff is fixed, you know, the conversations are somewhere between $1 and $2 million. 90% of this budget is, you know, 50% headcount, you got 10% for retirees pension, you got 10% for debt. I'm at 70% now. So, you know, I don't know some of the smaller ones off the top of my head, but I think it'll be helpful if I summarize that, you guys could see that when we get closer to the budget, so I think that would be helpful. And the capital thing, there's a summary that used to be on the bottom of this when I did it, when I handed it off to Cynthia, that had a group total, was life to date, basically from forever, and then it was annual, a fiscal year breakdown. So that's a simple just formula, we could, that'll be added for next meeting.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Yep.
I'll watch the YouTube video for the rest.
Yeah, no, I will.
John, Franklin, do you have any questions?
No, I just, for now, I want to thank John and Lenny for this information and for the presentation today. And hopefully everything gets fixed up the way you are planning to do it and to avoid the problem in the future and forever.
I will definitely update the council in a month or so, because we'll be meeting about the budget then, so it'll be perfect time to give an update of where we are with VIPAC and where we are with the system improvements, so I'll be right in that wheelhouse of April.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you.
Thank you, President, for tonight. So I understand that's it. Any questions further submitted to you or to Lana? Irina? You go, yeah.
Hi, John. Thank you for the information, for the PowerPoint presentation. I know before you mentioned that you want to have accessible the budget on the web for our residents.
That's the goal.
And also update the database.
Well, yeah, every time you look at it, it'll be refreshed, it'll be live.
Yeah,
That's
any
the goal.
idea how much these two items will cost? Any idea? You guys are still working on?
Well, it depends really, you know, as John said, what that answer is, you know, so, but actually getting them on in some type of web page format is not that expensive. You wanna?
Just one, I had forgotten earlier, but the mayor's actually asked for the transparency piece on the website. So we're gonna look at other, we've started to look at other municipals who have a fairly what they call transparency portal, budget portal, whatever you wanna call it. So it'll be an online system, so whenever the underlying system produces reports, it'll be transparent on a website for the city. That's something the mayor has been very strongly. I think you mentioned one or two members of the council will talk to him about it as well, but that's one of the items that he specifically asked us to make sure that we do.
Yeah, that would be great to have everything accessible for our residents, so, you know.
Yeah, no, right, you would,
Yeah.
if you look at Providence, so Providence, James, the mayor has, basically, he looks at it every day and he just, you know, just look at it and say, this is what I want, this is what I want. So if you look at the Providence website, I don't exactly know where it is on their website, but they have the budget expenditures live, where you click a department, it shows you budget, actuals, you know, variance, budget to actual, you know, you could see it as a pie chart, a bar chart, you could change the charts, it goes through all that stuff. So it's a very transparent, user-friendly, it's very user-friendly actually. So my goal is to, you know, may not exactly copy that, but the end result is you or anybody, anywhere could, you know, go to a web page and say, okay, what's Tuesday's spending? Oh, today's Wednesday, let's see how much it changed. Hey, it went up this, you know, so you'll see a lot more transparency, you know, in terms of, you know, department spending and versus budget. Right now, we put flat files, basically PDFs on an open data page, but that's not as user-friendly as, you know, Providence is.
Yeah, but you mentioned that the payrolls, it takes days, right? So, how is the database we have? Yeah, any idea?
No, I don't, I don't know, it's part of Infinite Vision creates the data, you know, the ADP has its own, and then The fact that it doesn't feed automatically is the issue. So that's the handshake that we're looking for, whether, like, as John said, whether that's because we're not using the correct modules, we're not educated to use the correct modules, or we refuse to because of Sally, do it the same way all the time, so it's like, same as last year, sorry, I call it Sally. Same as last year, meaning you do the same thing over and over because you don't want to change the way you do it. So there could be multiple reasons why that happened, so that's why we need to look at it and break it down and see why, why that is, because it shouldn't be that way, clearly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, any further questions, Len? The members can submit them to you? Or Irena? or-
Yeah, no, if it's a financial detail, by all means, you could submit it to me or Irina directly. If they're more geared towards, let's say, the capital list and the department, I would email the chief of staff so he could coordinate with the department heads of like why this project or why that project. That should come more from the directors itself, on the capital side.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Lizette.
Mr. Morganis,
Yes, sir.
thank you for this. I'll have to review this later. I requested last year, and let me make a request again, that all financial documents be submitted to us in larger type. The financial document that you submitted, too small. I asked last year to increase the size. This is like a 14 point, if it could be brought down to an 8, or as I requested, a spreadsheet. And again, I request that if we're starting a new system in the future, Mr. Morganis,
Yes.
then I would hope that financial reports would be submitted timely, as you mentioned. I would ask that they be submitted in a spreadsheet with corresponding years to review, as we've had in the past that this administration has neglected to include the last audit report, the last fiscal budget, the comparisons. These are the type of things that if we're going to be reviewing financial data, we need comparisons. We need to do it readily, not going back to 20 documents and trying to get the figures together. So that would make it much more convenient. I know it's been done in the past, and I'm requesting that it be done now. Also,
I could get into a debate. It hasn't been done certainly since 2010. I went through the last administration's reports, and it wasn't done then. Our system does not report multiple year in one report.
it's
We
been
would have to
done in
do
the
the same
past,
thing you
Mr.
would do.
Morganis.
We would have to
And we're
do.
requesting it be done in the future.
Right now, that would be a report we would have to invent. We do not
It's
have
a
that. from
computer,
the system.
you add another line to provide the other further documentation. Now, that's something
You mean-
that we can look into in the future, and that's what I've been requesting since last year, and I'll continue that request, Mr. Morganis, whether you're here as a CEO or you're here as the finance director in the future.
Mr. Lizette,
I-
Mr. Leganis is basically done.
I
Is there any
have-
other council members? He just told you, you can submit all these requests in writing, give it to him, or go make an appointment with either Mr. McGinnis or Irena.
Mr. President,
This is a workshop, it's over, he spoke, he
Mr.
presented a
President.
PowerPoint, Mr. Simmons is here
Mr.
patient, and again, just submit in writing. Tom.
Mr.
It's all you have to do to avoid this.
I
back
have
and
submitted
forth,
things in
back
writing,
and
but
forth.
Mr. President, I was speaking in, my comments here tonight is because we call this meeting for a
It's a
workshop.
workshop, correct.
Correct, and a workshop usually is the give and take of questions, that we have questions, we ask questions, we get answers, that provides further questions. That's a workshop.
But you're
I asked,
redundant.
excuse
Mr.
me,
Lizette, you're
excuse me,
redundant. I'm not gonna
Mr.
get into an
President.
argument.
Excuse me, I'm
Mr.
talking,
Lizette.
Mr. President, point of
Please-
order.
please
I have the
finish.
floor, Mr. President.
Please finish.
I'm talking. You keep interrupting my comments, and that's disrespectful. I appreciate if you let me finish my comments so I can finish.
I'm gonna help you,
No,
Councilman,
you-
give me 10 seconds.
You don't, I'll let you give 10 seconds after I'm done.
We have talked about doing that for the budget. We will not do it for the monthly financials. It is too time consuming because the council meeting and the time the documents need to go to the city clerk, we cannot change that today while we're in the midst of doing corrective actions. What I will say to you is, Irina and I have been talking about your request because you spoke on Friday and
Thursday, Friday. I tried calling today, but nobody was picking up. I left you a message on Friday.
And the result of that is that we are trying to work out how do we do that for the budget process so that there's multiple years in the book and the book has a format that we can live with. You can't have, if we show too many years on one page, you can't have font 20, you're gonna have one column on each page. So you can't have big fonts, 4 years, and detail in the same sheet.
You
So,
turn it sideways.
yeah, okay. I understand how
Yeah.
to, I'm just trying to tell you, we are talking about
I-
fulfilling your request about
I appreciate
multiple
that.
years.
I
It
appreciate.
will not happen for the monthlies, and it will not happen for the
I
monthlies this year.
appreciate that, Mr.
But it will happen,
Davis.
we are doing what we can to
There are other,
fulfill the request, that part of the request.
okay, there are other requests that I've made, Mr. Morganis, and I hope to fulfill those with you and discuss those with you. I'm not trying to be difficult. Unfortunately, I have certain institutional knowledge because I've been here in various aspects and I know certain information or documentation, so I appreciate receiving this information, documents, financial data. I can review it differently possibly than some of the other council people. I enjoy reviewing it. I enjoy getting this information, which I've been requesting since last year. Now, I would hope that the city clerk documents this meeting and the questions made by the council and the answers provided, that we have a history of this discussion and that it be fully documented in the minutes. I know we're going to have, I will request another financial meeting, workshop, Mr. President, so that we can go over the budget in detail. And there are individuals who I represent who question me on, what is this doing? Why is this here? How much is this? Why is this being spent? Those are the questions that I tried to ask the acting finance director, and she was unable to provide. This workshop was a manner where we could discuss these things, but unfortunately it's not. And I understand you don't want to discuss this further. So I would hope that very soon we have another financial meeting with documentation and information that all the council people have requested in further detail so that we can get into the nitty-gritty of the budget. I contend last year that we raised too much money in taxes. We had too much money in the budget. We had positions in the budget that remained unfilled. We had expectations and projections that were over-exceeded because they weren't included. We have a major surplus, I would assume, in this coming budget, which we imposed a tax increase, which I tried to eliminate by cutting 181,000, but the remainder of the council did not want to cut. We shouldn't have had a tax increase. We
Mr.
shouldn't have
Rosero,
had
at
a
budget
tax
time,
increase this
you
year.
can bring this all up at budget time.
Okay, I hope we
We're gonna meet a couple of,
I call we have another
you weren't
meeting
paying
next week.
attention to the AFO. He said at budget time will be at least twice a week.
No, I
So,
think,
and we can have another
I'm asking
workshop.
another workshop,
Yes, we
Mr.
can
Chair.
have another workshop. Are you
Sure.
done?
yes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilman Figueroa and Councilman Fonseca. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, nays, ayes have it. We stand adjourned at 7:17. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGinn.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.